Wow, it's been a long time. I've been meaning to do this video, but it's going to be like the most vulnerable thing I've ever shared online. Even my parents, siblings, and like many people will just be hearing this for the first time. And the reason I have decided to share this is because it's been on my mind. There are million little miracles in my life every day, but there are some huge ones that is just too hard to overlook. And this is one of them, and this is the most recent of them. Um, off my head, I can think of three major ones. Three major ones. The first being when I was still in the high school, junior secondary school, one call it JS1 in Nigeria, and I had to change schools, and the school I was now transferred to, I was going to be in the boarding house, but there was no space. So my parents put me in the day school for the period while I was waiting for space in the boarding house. And I had to leave from home to school. For those who stay in Lagos, there's this road they call it Yanoba, or however you want to pronounce it. It's a very busy road. Before you can cross on that road, and it's not like in the Western world where you can press something and the cars will stop for you. You know, you have to just figure out how to cross, time it right, and then cross. So I was crossing this road on one of the days. I was actually going with a neighbor, but for some reason he wasn't comfortable. He just displayed some acts, and the very first day I decided, I now know the road. I can go by myself. I got hit by a motorbike, and in the middle, right in the middle of the road. And that road is a road that has cars every minute, lots of cars. But for some reason, for that period, it was just me and the bike man that was on the road, and the market women had to come carry us and take us off the road. And after that, it took close to like 3, 4 minutes before the very first vehicle came. If a vehicle was coming right behind that bike man, myself and the bike man were on the road, we would have been crushed to death. And you might not be able to understand the scenario I'm trying to paint, but it was a massive miracle. This was a long time ago. I was about 9 years old at this time, so it was a long while ago. Then there was one I had a trailer, big truck driving, and then the tire from the vehicle wasn't tied. We have some very funny things to see in my home country. And then he was taking a bend with high speed, and then the spare tire at the back, the flatbed behind it, fell off the bed and was coming to hit my vehicle. And I tried to swerve, and I swerved right into the bush in a very lonely area where I normally pass through from my home to work. Well, I just felt like nobody lives there. But suddenly, when I was in the bush, I had nothing to do. I was wondering if I was still alive or dead. And then villagers all came across from different parts. The car was damaged. So I was still able to be fixed with it, but the car was really damaged. But I came out on hot. As I came out, I had like 2 or 3 colleagues, one going the opposite direction, one going the other direction. They both stopped when they saw me and came to my rescue. I was going for a night shift. I used to work as a shift control room operator back in those days. So I was going for a night shift when this happened. So we called the shift manager, and they got a vehicle to come pick me up, took me to the clinic. My blood pressure was very high, my vitals were off the hook, but physically I was okay. And so I had to take the night off. So those are the two massive ones. Now back to the miracle and the testimony of today. Today makes it exactly 6 months I escaped death. No, I didn't escape it. God saved my life. On the 8th of January 2023, just 1 week into the year, and I had so many dreams, goals, aspirations. We had set our program for the year. I had realized that the previous year we weren't really praying like a family. We were all praying, but we're not praying together as a family because my husband leaves for work pretty early in the evening. So say give and take 6:37 most times. So we had already agreed we want to be saying our family rosary and prayers as we've always did before we came here. And so I fixed 5 p.m. and he kind of like agreed I was okay with it. And so um, we were praying our rosary we started our rosary by 5 p.m. as we had agreed on that day, as usual. And suddenly we were about to conclude at about 5:40, 5:45 p.m. And I just felt like, I wasn't urinating. I was sitting down. We were praying. I was sitting down we were praying in the living room. So I was sitting down on the chair, and I had my rosary in my hand, and I think I was the one leading, and I just felt a sudden flow of liquid leaving my body, like I was, like you have urine, you're passing out urine, but I just sitting down. I just said, no, this is bad. I ran upstairs, and before I could go upstairs, there were traces of blood all through the stairs. I was bleeding. As in, it's like you open it. Let me paint the perfect scenario. You open the tap, and water is running out. That's how it was just running out from my private parts. I got to the bathroom and I jumped into the bathroom already, but the whole floor, the staircase, everywhere, because we're downstairs, everywhere was already stained with traces of blood because it was flowing. And I didn't know what to do. Okay, let me rewind. Before then, to give context to what I'm saying, a few weeks before then, I had noticed changes in my body and I wasn't sure what it was, but I had suspected what it would be because, of course, I kind of like understand my body and the way it works. And I don't even know how much I should share in this testimony because I'm sharing this for two reasons, two major reasons. First is I thought to myself, if God is not ashamed to save me, if God is not ashamed to come to my rescue, why am I ashamed of testifying of His glory? Is it shame? Is it shyness? And then when I hear other people's testimonies, that's the second reason. It inspires me. It strengthens my faith. It just makes me love God more. It just gives me that belief that God is indeed good. I feel it. It touches me. I think it makes me better, really. So I feel like you're holding yours. If everybody holds their testimony and you don't get these testimonies to strengthen your faith, how would you feel? So share yours too to strengthen other people's faith. So yeah, okay, let me say this. So I felt like okay, a week before, not a week. Now this testimony is scattered. I don't plan to make this too long. I want to speak straight. So let me go straight to the point. So I had found out earlier. I had suspected, but I hadn't done a test that I was pregnant. Of course, it wasn't planned. Um, while I was still battling all the plans I had for the year that I had in my mind that I was going to accomplish. But of course, based on all the things that happened the previous year, I was already telling myself that I'm going to take the back seat and just let God be the driver. I will make plans, of course, but I will have it at the back of my mind that these are my own human plans and God has the final say and He is the ultimate planner. He's working behind the scene. Okay. Even before I pray or ask for something, He's working behind the scene. He knows my heart. He knows what I want. That was my belief. And I said to myself, I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to be worried. I'm just going to, let things flow. So when this happened, I had plans that I know that being pregnant is going to scatter. I'm like, I didn't plan for this. And I said, oh God, I know this is a blessing, but isn't this the wrong timing and stuff like that? So I kept living in denial. I felt all the symptoms of being pregnant. I kept living in denial. Just one of those nights, I was just thinking. So I put my babies to sleep. Then my son I just hugged him to say good night, and he just says to me, "Mommy, baby in your tummy." And I looked at him like, "How? These little ones are angels." Oh." And I looked at him like, "What? How? Like I've not discussed this. I'm just thinking about it right now." And he says, "A baby boy." And I was trying to, process this information, and he said it again, and then said good night. And I said to myself, there was no need for test, but I'll still do a test. I just knew at that moment that, Grace, you're pregnant. You need to start making plan Bs to your plan and let God perfect it. So I accepted by faith, I started planning for the baby. And I was also scared because normally my other pregnancies were kind of planned, and I would start taking supplements and stuff to keep myself, making sure that I'm preparing my womb for the baby. But this one, I was just, I know, I was in the office. I used to drink coffee that I normally don't drink, and some other stuff. And I just felt like, am I even really prepared for a baby? So my prayer point became, God, you know why you're giving me this baby. If it is your will, please let it be a very healthy baby. I kept praying for that. And I also had this care because on my other pregnancies, I wasn't bleeding like that. I know some people say they bled throughout their pregnancy, but I've never had that. And I know they say every pregnancy is different, but it was like spotting initially. But that morning, that Sunday morning, the morning of the January 8th, before I went to church, I noticed that I wasn't spotting as usual. It was much more, so I had to use pad. Normally, I wasn't using pad. That's how it was just. And then you notice that the bleeding was more, so I used sanitary pad to prevent myself from being um, soiled in the church. So when we came back from church, I realized that it continued in that, you know. I kept using the pad and saying, okay, I'm gonna call the GP. I'd had my first antenatal checkup, or everything was okay, and also they've asked me that there's an emergency. They're giving me a number to call, the hospital number to call for the maternity ward. So I was like, okay, I was gonna give them a call. I'd called them earlier. They said I should just keep monitoring the bleeding. If it gets intense, I call them. Okay, so I was like, okay, I'll call them. And then that evening, I had to call them. I called over an hour. I couldn't get them. Kept saying, God, take control. God, take control. I stayed in the bathroom. And when it became obvious that all was not well was when I went into the bathroom. I'm going back to where I stopped before. So I went into the bathroom when I noticed this testimony is scattered because that's how I can kind of remember it. I've always wanted to do this testimony on my birthday in March. I was going to testify how 2 months earlier I almost like wouldn't have celebrated this birthday. And another reason why I'm also sharing this testimony is I'm trying to make sure that um, I'm private about it. I don't share it. But at the end of the day, if I had died on 8th of January, it would have been public. So now I'm alive and I'm ashamed to share it. Why? So yeah, that's um that's one of the reasons too why I'm sharing this. And thinking about it is making me a bit emotional, but I'm grateful to God that I'm still here, and I'm trying my best to live intentionally and stuff like that. So I've talked to somebody this morning. I woke up, I joined a prayer at 3 a.m. Catholics will know the prayer. It's called Divine Mercy. There's a platform on Clubhouse. I try to join them early in the morning if I can. And I thought of shooting this video, and I just kept pushing it. Now it's 1:06 as in PM in the afternoon, and I need to go shopping. But I just said no. If I don't shoot this video by the time I come back from shopping, it will be late. So today is July 8th, exactly 6 months after this incident that could have taken my life. But Mercy said no. Mercy said no. I'm not gonna let you go. I'm not gonna let you slip away. You don't need to be afraid. Yeah, I'm not afraid at all. I'm not afraid at all. The Lord has shown me mercy, and I'm still here. Fast forward to evening, I was able to get them after loads of trials, and I called and they asked me to either get the ambulance, if I can get the ambulance, or if I can get someone to drive me there. I need to show up. By then, I've been bleeding continuously for like 5 hours. Yeah. because I got to the hospital around 11 p.m. thereabouts. Around 10 p.m. Close to 5 hours, around 10 p.m. past 10 to 11. A friend came to pick me up. I had to even use my jacket, which is like waterproof, to tie my clothes, because as soon as she came, I came downstairs. My husband had gone to shift for night duty that day. Before he left, because he was leaving by 6:30, asked me if he should call to cancel the shift. I told him to go, that will be fine, you know. Because before he left, when I went into the bathroom, I had this, apart from the bleeding that was just running like water, that was blood dropping like water as if a tap was opening from me into the bathroom on the floor. Something like almost the size of my clenched fist, like this, just like this size, about the size of clotted blood dropped. And just said, "Oh, baby is gone." At that time, too, I knew, where is this blood coming from? It was so clotted and so thick that we couldn't dissolve it, pass it through the bathroom drain. So we had to pack it in tissue and now flush it down the toilet. And while we're still doing that, another lump, slightly smaller, came out, and then the third one. So I just took pictures of it, and in case I needed to go into the hospital, I could explain better with pictures. But before that, yes, okay. I skipped the point. This part I said happened before July the 8th. This happened on the 6th of January. So I was scheduled for an emergency scan on the 7th. Yeah, yes, yes. I had more, so the bleeding had increased, and I had to start using sanitary pad on the 6th. So I had to go in for an emergency scan on the 7th. Waiting for a scan. They tried to scan. They said the baby was still quite small. Just approaching the end of the first trimester. I was close to the end of the first trimester. It was about the 11th week. I was approaching the 11th week of my pregnancy, so it was quite early, and they couldn't really see much, so they had to do an internal scan. That was the very first time. So the scan wasn't on the tummy as usual, but through my private part. Okay. So they inserted inside to be able to see. And at that time I was bleeding. So I feel like that also aggravated the bleeding afterwards, because this incident happened the day after. The bleeding became more. And the scan was inconclusive because she could still see traces of baby in the scan. And so she says it looks almost impossible that with what she has seen that was discharged, it looks almost impossible to still have the baby in there. But that she can't dismiss it because she can still say something. But she feels like we've lost the baby. And I said, okay. So the scan was put as inconclusive. Okay, so that will give you more context to what happened afterwards. So when I went to the hospital and mentioned the bleeding, they asked me to come. I called a friend and she took me there. And when we got there, in fact, when I came downstairs, as soon as she came, because I already dressed the kids up, my husband had gone to work, so she took myself and my kids to the hospital, you know. And when we got to the hospital, the nurse took me to one of the rooms, examination room, took me to the toilet. He put this carton-like kind of stuff that looks like potty that you put on the toilet seat, so that so if you sit down on the toilet, whatever comes out from you will not go down the drain, but will be collected in that carton like stuff. And so that's what happened. So when she now said, "Oh, sit down, let's see, let's sit down there for a while." I said, "I don't even need to sit down for a while. It's constantly dripping the way I am." So as soon as I just removed my trousers and pants and sat on it, I got up immediately, and she saw the blood she saw there with even the clotting and all. She immediately told me to please dress up, and they moved me into a room. She just says, "No, you can't even leave today. We have to we have to look through and see what's happening." They put like a pad on the bed to keep me, and asked me to undress and put on the hospital clothes. Just remove all my clothes and then just put on the hospital clothes and stay there. And They just kept checking. 5 minutes, the pad was full. So they were like, this is serious. The doctor came first. She looked at me, examined me, um, all those prostheses. What are you allergic to? Used latex glove, went in, checked. And then she went out, came back with another doctor and 3 nurses. Now then I said, it looks like I'm dying today. This NHS people, I don't have doctors and nurses. I have 2 doctors, 3 nurses looking at me. They came, they now said, oh, okay, it looks like I'm having a miscarriage. They're going to give me some drug to just, clear it up. I said, okay. They explained all the processes to me. Then they left. I could see them through there's like a small mirror at the top of the door, even though the door was closed, like an open glass. So I could see them through the glass as they were discussing in front of my room. So I was already checked into a room where I would spend the night while they examine me and attend to me. And I could see them discussing, and I was wondering what they were discussing because I was worried because I could see their faces like they were arguing over something. And even after the whole incident, my friend came and said she was so scared. She had to come out to them and say it's all well because of the way they kept going back and forth. No, let's do this, let's. And the way they gathered, she was so scared, because they had to move. So they later came to the room. My friend and my children, they were in the reception at the first time. When they realized I was going to stay overnight, I asked if they could come in and stay with me. But by the time they checked and the blood was not stopping continuously, they had to take them out to the next place. And my children fell asleep. They were going to school the next day. I had to call my husband. He was far away, like a 30 minutes drive away. He couldn't get a cab. It took me a while to get a cab. So he got into just after about past 11 p.m. And that was when I asked him that I could go home with the kids. I spoke to him on the phone because he couldn't come in yet. And he says no, that he will stay all night with me since they said I'm going to go to the theater for an emergency operation. So um, I found out that the phone got full while I was shooting the video. I just went shopping, but as you can see, this was me on January 9th at about 1 a.m. or so when I came out from the theater. I was moved back to my room to recover. You can see my vitals being monitored. I can't shoot another video, so I'll just talk over this. There wasn't much to say, but I just did the video after I survived. I didn't even think of doing a video when I was struggling. But after they deliberated on giving me a tablet to wash out the miscarriage if it was the cause of the plenty bleeding, they decided against it because of the last scan that was inconclusive and the legal requirement would not allow them to give me that drug. And they kept deliberating and finally decided that I would have to go for an operation. And yeah, I had to do that. My husband was in the room praying, and at about a few minutes past 1, I believe, because I asked him for the time, I was wheeled back into the room for recovery. And yeah, I was recovering by the grace of God.
It's almost 1.
And the whole scenario was so funny. I was told to fill plenty forms. I was told they would pass a pipe through my throat. I might have sore throat. But everything they said I might have, I actually had. So before I was taken into the theater for the operation and all the form filling, I even wanted to use the restroom, but they would not let me get up because they said I should just wait because, of course, during the operation they had to pass the pipe. Is it what you call it? When you pass through that, the urine will be going into her. So they say I should just wait till they pass that. They cannot risk me standing up from the bed because I've lost too much blood and I might just collapse and go from there.
Oh, it's your mask. The oxygen mask that was there before.
Okay, they removed it and didn't take it away.
Yeah.
Eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
The oxygen mask.
Okay. When they removed it, why did they take it away?
I don't know. I have no
Leave
idea.
it there. I don't know why. Okay. They brought me here with the oxygen mask and the oxygen canister. They took the canister away.
As soon as he brought in, the guy says he doesn't think you need it. So I guess he just concluded that he would take it away.
Why did they do the mask?
Just asking me.
If I don't ask you, who will? Well, this was me the next morning, but before this next morning, during the time we were preparing for the operation, they told me that during the operation, I'll, I won't feel anything because I would be asleep all through. I had to ask them, please, when will I now wake up? They said, not too long after the operation. So I didn't even know. The last thing I remember after they wheeled me into the theater at about a few minutes to midnight was they put the nose mask on my nose, and I didn't know that they passed a gas that sent me to sleep. I had to just read up about the operation when I got home, and yeah, this was me the next day. That was my breakfast, and when they served me the breakfast, the hospital took my my request for lunch. And just before lunch, I was discharged. I couldn't go to get my drugs because they felt I could not stand for a queue up since I didn't have someone coming to pick me and I was using a taxi home because my husband had to do the whole school runs that day. And interestingly, he was resuming for a new job, which he wanted to cancel the shift. And I said, no, I'm hoping I'll be discharged that day. And I was. Well, the nurse went, got my drugs, asked if I wanted to wait for lunch before I go. And I said, yes, I waited. So part of the drug was, apart from, so that's my lunch. It looks yummy. And it was yummy actually. Part of my medication was to give myself an injection on my thigh for 10 days, which I couldn't do by myself. So I outsourced it to who else? I outsourced it to my husband, of course. So he gave me the injection on my thigh for 10 days, and I started my recovery process. It was tough, from serious sore throat to pain to unexplainable periods. My menstrual period was times two the cycle, like 8 days, 9 days. I was bleeding. I was like, ha, don't tell me this is the same story like the woman with the issue of the blood in the Bible. So that's what the injection I had to give myself on the thigh looked like. They were with these syringes and then they were all put into this container with blue cover. So 10 of them. Then the other bottle there was like ferrous for blood. I forgot to mention I had lost so much blood that I had to go through blood transfusion during the operation. So I was given a pint of blood, and then they were monitoring my vitals to be sure that all was okay. So they monitored it for a while and said if the blood level wasn't okay, they would have to take me back to the theater and also give me whether back to the theater or how, but they would have to have they would give another blood transfusion, another pint of blood. But to God be the glory, all was okay, and I was discharged the next day, the 9th of January, and here I am today. I'll say almost fully recovered. My menstrual cycle is back to normal, I believe, and I'm ready to hit the gym and keep fit again. That's the container. That's me putting in the syringes. I'm not sure I'm supposed to put the other blue container, but I shall put everything inside. You're supposed to return the syringes back to the GP for them to dispose of it accordingly. So I packed them all up, sealed it, and returned it to the GP after I completed my medication. I am grateful to God that I'm here. So join me thanking God. Tobechukwu.
He has done it for me.